Good evening. This is the Monday, January 27th, 2025 meeting of the Academy Community Center Building Committee. This is Joe Valentine, Chair, and I'm calling the meeting to order. Since we have people in various places, I'm going to ask those here to identify themselves quickly. Again, I'm Joe Valentine.
Ann Kelly.
Peter Horton. AJ Miller.
Bill Stableford, member of the public.
Austin Hall, Director of Beach and Recreation.
Tom Arcari with QA&M Architecture.
And on the board here, John.
John Copeless from Colliers Project Leaders.
Mark. Mark Scalenka.
He looks frozen.
Myers, appears to be
There he is.
frozen at the moment. And is Felicia on?
She was momentarily, but she's not here anymore.
Okay. Possibly later we'll get Felicia Smith back on. Okay, the meeting's to order. The first item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from January 13th. Do I have a motion to approve?
I haven't seen them.
No, I haven't seen them either. I thought I was the outlier. Okay, the minutes have not been distributed. At least no one here has seen them. So we will delay that till the approval of the January 13th minutes till our next meeting. Next item is chair's comments. I spoke with our liaison today, Al Goldberg, and he is in another meeting, as are most people of the Board of Selectmen. And the information that I got from Al this morning was that the Board of Selectmen, in conjunction with the Board of Finance, will be discussing the date and time and manner of a referendum to obtain more, to be able to fund the balance of the Academy School minus what, excuse me, above the original 15.9 million that was approved in the first referendum. They are leaning towards a May date. That will be discussed tonight. It may or may not be voted on tonight, but they will let us know and the town know as soon as they have come to a conclusion.
Did you get any indication as to why they were leaning that way?
The first date would have to have been in March. It was like March 15th, about that time. And that was too little time to get the package put together for the referendum, so people can understand what was in, what was out, and what they were voting for. They thought that the May date would give more time for public comment to be, and first of all, to package the information, and then to get public comment on it. There's also a period where there is no, it's a dead period.
It's a silent period.
Silent period.
2 weeks.
Thank you.
Prior, yeah.
The dead period's, I guess, a little extreme. So that there is even between the dates, there's an amount of time that the board and the town can't advocate for the referendum. So that was taken in, when you take that into consideration, the time for actual preparation and discussion was pretty limited.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on this? Comments? Okay. And that's it for the chair's comments. Well, okay, that was Al. The liaison report would be Al, and he's not. He is in the other meeting. And Austin, or you have any other comments?
No, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
is, the next thing on the agenda is subcommittee reports. Is there anyone there to report on the theater? I haven't seen Joan come up. And who else is on the theater?
She's still by herself.
Joan's by herself at the moment? Okay. So no comments from theater. Environmental, that would be
Dave.
Dave. Dave's not here. What were you on, AJ?
It's on design.
Design?
I have a question, but I don't have any comments. So,
Would it be appropriate to do that now, or do you want to do it at some other point?
I don't know, under new business, are we gonna discuss this insulating question that came up?
Okay. We will we will take that as no report, but a question for later. Is that-
Yeah, as long as that's on the, something we can discuss later.
That's the, is it covered under the new business, item 10? Or do you need, or do we
New
need to make
business
an
item
addition to there?
10 was high level to me, and so I didn't know if there was a comment that was made about potentially insulating some walls of Academy that seemed out of scope originally, and I wanted to discuss that tonight to get some further clarity, if that's going to be covered under item 10.
No,
Fantastic.
it was not intended to be covered in item 10. That was not what item 10 is about, but if you want to make a motion to
Yeah, can I make a motion to open the agenda?
second? Anyone?
Second,
I would like to move to open the agenda to add an item to discuss insulating walls, additional insulation for the walls of the Academy Community Center. To get additional clarification on that scope.
Any discussion? Approved? All approval?
aye.
Aye.
Hi, this is Felicia.
What was that? So, I didn't hear you.
Felicia.
Felicia says aye.
Oh, okay, thank you. So so that would be item, new business, and we can call that 10A.
Yeah, that's good.
So we moved, because I get this wrong a lot. We
It's
moved,
okay.
we've seconded, we discussed, and we voted,
Yes,
and now we can move
so
on.
now it's in the agenda.
Okay, got it. Item 6, anything else in design? Anybody else?
Nothing for me.
Item 6, review and approve invoice packet if applicable. There was an invoice packet.
There is an invoice packet. There are two invoices to briefly describe. First invoice is from Colliers. It is for the balance of the bidding phase of their contract for $644. And the second invoice is from QA&M Architecture, and it is $2,000 to finish out the procurement portion of their contract, plus $294.80 in reimbursable expenses. And I'd like to move that we approve these invoices for payment.
You have a second.
I have a question.
Do we have a second first? Do we have a second to approve?
Peter did.
Peter, okay. Okay, now we can ask question.
This is Felicia. So what happens if we move to a May referendum and we have to rebid? Because obviously we need our support consultants to help us with that, and it is not a small endeavor. Just want to put that out there.
Tom, I guess the question, I mean, I could be direct, Tom. If it goes to a May referendum as and we do decide to rebid, those are, by the way, those are two different decisions that have to be made. Would you charge us additional, would there be an additional charge from You don't have to give me a number, just,
I would just have to wait and see where we are. I mean, we've done bidding based on our contract requirements. If there was a reason why we would have to rebid it, meaning, for instance, we blew, I don't know, if there was a reason in the contract that the bids were no good because of fault of ours or cause of ours, then of course we would rebid that for free. In this particular case, I don't know if that's the case, so I prefer to plead the fifth at this moment, but it's possible if we have good bids and the contractors, willing to hold their bids till May, but you choose to rebid it, then we would probably, want to get a fee to do that. But we can discuss it at that time.
Okay, Mark?
Also, wait a second, I want to amend my description of the QA&M invoice. We're not, this invoice doesn't actually close out the procurement section of the contract. There's a $3,000 balance on that section.
Okay. And Mark, you have a raised hand. Mark
Yeah,
Stolenka.
I was just gonna say, back to the bidding in May. Do we know if we cannot hold the bids, or has it been determined that we don't want to hold the bids, that we want to rebid it? Where do we stand with that?
There has been no decision made.
Okay,
I think we need a decision from Board of Selectmen on whether they
Whether they're gonna do May or not, that's
may
the
or not,
first,
then we would go
that's
ask.
the first step. And the second step is, do we want to, will someone rebid? Will someone hold their bid? And the third step is whether the answer is yes or no, will we choose to rebid? And those are all up for discussion, but not, right now it would all be speculative because we don't have that first step yet.
Are the bidders still held to the 100 days or have they?
Yes. They are still held to the 100 days, Peter.
Just 100 time?
Correct. As of now, they're held till, I think it's March 20th is that date. And actually, Ann, I just wanted to also clarify the remaining balance on the QAM for the bidding phase is $3,000, $2,000 of which they are submitting tonight. So that would leave a remaining balance of 1,000, just to make sure that was clear.
Prior build, according to this invoice, is $15,000, and if they are bidding, or if they're billing us $2,000 now, that leaves a $3,000 balance.
I'm sorry, you're right. I was looking at the wrong line there. Okay, you're right. Sorry, Ian.
However,
Colliers, I guess Colliers would be the next. Could you give us a feeling on the same, your current opinion on the same question?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Question was, if it's a May referendum.
Yep.
And the decision is to rebid. Will
Yep.
there be additional charges from Colliers?
Likely, because we'd be duplicating efforts.
Okay. Does that answer your question? Whoever had, I guess Felicia, that was your question.
So yeah, that's my question. I guess it's less of a question and more of a statement that I want the town to be aware of. They're doubling up on efforts and they're doubling up on costs that we've already put forward if they're making us rebid this and if we are not holding the bid. I'm getting frustrated with the lack of clear direction from them. We could very easily go out to the bidders and ask them to hold it for another 100 days versus having to go back out and rebid all of this. It is not on our board's purview to decide that, but it's very frustrating because why are we all here if we don't have a lack of clear direction? Why are we approving invoices based on contracts we have that are being changed by forces that aren't ours? It's less of a question, more of a frustrated statement. that I just want to put out there. So I'm going to be abstaining on approving any invoices because I don't feel that we should be approving anything for this project until we have a clear direction from people who have now been in charge of this project that are not this board. So that's just me for the record. I will stop.
I don't think these invoices are, I think these are for work that has been done, not for work that is to be done. So Felicia,
Understood, but if we're saying we're closing out the bidding period with these invoices, we're not. The bidding period is still very much open and might be back to square one. So it's just, we're trying to be all fiscally responsible. I just want to put it out there.
But yeah, the whole question turns on if there's going to be a referendum and when that referendum is going to be. So that's,
Absolutely.
and that is not in our purview at the moment.
And yet we're still being asked to conduct our meetings in a manner to push this project forward. So I will say more on this later. We can table it for the invoice portion of it.
Thank you, Felicia. Mark, you have your hand up again.
Yeah, this is a question, Joe. If the town decided to rebid it, would they then take the alternates that were accepted and put those into the base package, or would those be rebid as alternates as well?
I think that's where you start coming into what the committee would recommend.
Did the committee recommend a set of alternates?
Again, we're 3 steps away from that.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Where were we?
Vote on approving the
A
invoices.
vote on the, on
Approving the invoices. for
the
payment.
invoices, okay. We had a motion.
It's
was
been
seconded. All in favor of approve, no, Mark, your hand up again. Want to say something before we vote? No, that was a silent no.
No, I forgot to lower it, sorry.
All in favor of approving the invoices as recommended in the motion, raise your hand.
Aye.
We have 4 here. Felicia?
I'm abstaining.
Okay, thank you. Second part of the, from the financial group, the financial committee, subcommittee, to review and approve budget line item transfers if applicable
None today.
today. 8, Collier's update, John or Mark.
Joe, I just wanted to share, I've attended a couple of meetings last week. There was a Board of Selectmen's meeting as well as a Board of Finance meeting. So we were asked to attend those. And outside of that, we don't have anything else new to report. Just waiting for, the direction from the town as to how to proceed with the project and the contractors.
Mark, anything to add? That was a silent no.
I keep, nothing to add, Joe.
Okay, thank you. Tom, I know we've asked you to do a couple of things under new business item 10. Do you have any other update besides?
I have no updates besides the new business items. Does that include the requests or the questions you asked by email earlier?
I don't think we have enough information for that. And it was unfair not to give you more time to ask some questions about the budget, which were kind of deep into the weeds, and we can pull those up in the next meeting.
Sounds good.
So we'll go to item 10, new business, and in the, should should there be a referendum, if that is approved, no matter when it is, whether it's in March, there will be public information meetings, and the presentations would best be served with graphics. And so what I asked Tom to do, or Tom or Brian, to come up with, at least give us some ideas of what has been used for graphics so far. There was a presentation to ACA, whatever ACA is, and planning and zoning. And if Tom could, are you prepared to kind of go over those, show those, you have pictures or?
Well, I brought them with me, and then maybe you can issue these to the building committee. There's no decision that's gonna be made tonight. These are just some examples of presentations. We have 2 years worth of renderings of the exterior of the building, the landscape. We have a video that's on here that we prepared a couple years ago that explains how the new entrance works. There are some still renderings on here. So this will give you an idea of what's necessary, what we have at our disposal that we could essentially cut and paste and reuse. But, when we get to that point, our team is, available to put together the informative materials as necessary for any sort of pamphlet or whatever the town decides to put forth to explain the referendum. I think the only thing when we looked at it at length, the only thing we really don't have is a good rendering of the north side of the building. We have some elevational details of that portion of the building, but we never made a rendering of the north side of the building because we're basically just replacing the windows in the gym and that's it. So.
The north side is the Academy Street?
No, the north side is the ball field side,
Okay.
the gym facade that faces the ball field.
So we did at one point ask for a rendering from kind of that parking lot on the north side, looking out to get a sense of that fencing and stuff that was on the top. So I don't know if that was still, that just got buried in the to-do list.
Possibly, either way, that's something that can be provided when the time comes. So anyways, I'll issue this to committee, and it's a big file, so these files actually have to be Dropbox delivered, but they can be sent to all the committee members.
Okay. Any explanatory information on what on your presentations with the two town boards? Are there any open issues? Are there?
No, we have our P and Z approvals contingent. We have ACA a recommendation and approval. We have our Historic District Commission approval. So the municipal approval process is complete. We're ready to go.
Building department is all set as well.
The building department, we have the one outstanding issue that you brought up that you amended to the committee.
Okay.
That still has to be sort of addressed. We still have to have a meeting with the building official. We haven't had that meeting yet. I was doing as much code research as possible prior to having that meeting, but our next step is to set up that meeting. I don't think it really affects the process and the time frame. It affects the scope and potential cost, but I think we'll work through it with the building official. I can tell you my thoughts about it this evening if you really want to, but I haven't had a chance to really discuss it with the building official face to face.
Now that's what that's what 10A is about.
Yeah. So we'll talk about that.
Anything besides that with any of the commissions, everything's.
No, to be honest, everything's where it's supposed to be. We're just waiting to find out about the referendum, so.
You said there was a contingent on the PNC.
Oh, there were some contingent requirements, usually, they're very little things like, based upon you making this change, which they recommended at the presentation or making that change, but it's all.
Sure, what are this change and that change?
I don't have it in front of me, I can get the letter for you, it's little stuff. Little
There are
things.
no other comments from the building department in their review? Are they done with the review and the only thing sticking is this one, is the 10A item?
This is the only item that I've been made aware of at this time.
Could you submit that, copy of that to Jeannie and so she can distribute it? Or you can send it to me and I'll get it to Jeannie to,
The letter of approval for P and Z.
the one that has the contingency on it.
Oh, yeah, approval letter.
And that should be just, that'll be distributed with the notes.
Okay.
Thank you, John. 10A, closures, AJ, where do you want to start?
I don't know what we're talking about. So I would like to start from the beginning.
Okay,
What do we mean adding insulation to the building? Where did it come from? Can someone just kind of walk us through the background of where the request came from and how we got to where we are today?
I can talk about it briefly. As a part of the project, we're upgrading the entire envelope. New roof. Right now, there's no insulation. We're providing, full R30 insulation on the roof. We're replacing the windows, high performance windows. We are replacing all the mechanical and electrical systems, which are high performing systems. What we are not doing is stripping the interior walls in the building. We're not gutting the building. The building official has asked or has indicated it's his interpretation of the code that we have to bring the envelope's performance to a higher level, which means the only way we could insulate it would be to remove the plaster, insulate the exterior wall cavities, or fur all the exterior walls out, put some insulation on the interior of the wall assemblies, because the existing wall assemblies essentially have no insulation. It was never our intention really to do so, for a number of reasons. One, we're renovating the building and working from within the existing envelope perimeters. Two, when you start insulating an existing wall assembly to the inside, it can have significantly bad effects, meaning when you change where the dew point in the wall assembly is, you could get stuck creating a spot within the wall where moisture condensates. So we don't recommend it for this solution. The building's been functioning for many years, and we're improving the building systems dramatically. So it's my intention to meet with the building official, explain this to him, what our approach is, and talk about some alternates. So we could do an energy model of the building, and make up for heat loss at the exterior wall assembly and other places. That's one approach. Two, we've asked the building official, the building official asked us to insulate the exterior walls. I haven't met the building official, so I don't want him to think I'm talking at him in a public meeting. We've asked him to send us the code citation from the code where he believes it actually tells us we have to do that. We've looked at that language and our interpretation is different. We're applying the international existing building code to this building that allows a significant amount of flexibility, particularly for a level, what we call a level 2 alteration. there's 3 levels of alterations, level 1, level 2, level 3. One is we're just removing the carpet and putting the carpet down. Level 2 is we're modifying some areas of the building, but the rest of the building, we're just removing and replacing carpet. A level 3 alteration is where you physically change more than 50% of the footprint of the building, the configuration of the building. We're not doing that. So when you do a level 3 alteration, it requires you to bring the entire building up to code. A level 2 alteration requires you to bring anything you do new or modify significantly has to be brought to the standards of current international law. So based on that, we're not really, I don't believe we're required to upgrade the exterior envelope. So what I'd really like to do, now we're just talking about this out loud, what I really want to do is have to sit down with the building official and talk through this and explain to him, you know, what our thought process is and why we're taking this approach, and are there, if he's, you know, really adamant about the position, are there alternate solutions that'll get us to a compromise?
So I could add one thing, it's been, the cost to do that is significant.
I would imagine so, because those are all asbestos plaster walls, right? It's full of basement.
So this is not a minor, well, okay, we just do it and not worry about it. It would add a significant amount of cost.
We would likely fur all the walls out, the exterior walls. We probably wouldn't demo and try and insulate the existing walls out.
Build a new
What
wall
does-
inside of the.
What does fur all the walls mean?
Oh, it means frame, put a new wall, build a new wall on the inside face of the exterior wall, so that we have, let's say, a cavity that we could put insulation into.
And you'd leave the existing interior wall in place?
Yeah, we would bury it with our new wall.
Except for the windows.
But-
Yeah, and then then we'd have to detail it and create extension jams and,
Yeah,
you know,
it's
understand.
even that is a decent amount of work to add to the project.
Tom, may I ask, have you looked into the historic restoration sort of caveats? I think there's a specific code that if this is a listed building, which it's in a district, it's not independently listed, there is exceptions to building codes that we could invoke. Have we gotten in touch with the SHPO or CT Trust to help us sort of interpret the code in that way as well?
I haven't, but that's sort of that would be our next step beyond that. The State Historic Preservation Office is not a big fan of insulating the existing exterior brick and plaster wall assemblies. They will leave them in their, you know, natural state. So use that as a position of, you know, defense or discussion as well. But going through SHPO sometimes is easy as a phone call, and sometimes it's not. So I'm leaving that.
I have, being in historic preservation myself, I have extensive connections both at the SHPO and at CT Trust, which I'm happy to make phone calls about, because I do agree from an envelope standpoint, it's going to wreak havoc on the exterior brick of the building. It's also going to pretty much sacrifice any of the historic sort of details that we're trying to save so very much. You know, all the millwork that's in there, all of the existing baseboard, the window trims and things like that. So I very much disagree with the interpretation of the code that has been taken. And I think that there needs to be a sit down, and I'd be happy to bring in resources so that we could all come to a conclusion where we're doing right by the building, both in terms of energy code and efficiency, but also preserving the historic nature that I think is the reason we're going to great lengths to save this building in the first place.
Well, the sit down is going to be scheduled. I'll loop you into that schedule, into that conversation, Felicia, and
Okay.
I'm not against reaching out to SHPO, particularly if you have a contact there that you can make an informal conversation about and potentially get some support.
Absolutely, yeah.
Let's do that before the meeting.
Okay, yeah, just give me a call.
Mark Skalenka's got his hand raised.
Mark,
Thanks. Tom, is there a fee associated with any of the follow-up work that you may need to do as a result of exploring this? So I know energy modeling is done, but that's also not a cheap endeavor. So would there be added costs from your end?
I don't know, because I'm not convinced we're gonna have to go down that path. An energy model is a significant cost if we had to go that route. I'd like to believe that we could have a conversation first and, you know, and then see what we have to do, if we have to do something.
You've done an analysis of the municipality envelope, if you were to add insulation as to where it would do.
I have not done that analysis.
It's an argument they're gonna.
They might.
It's an argument you can use if you say, look, it's gonna land right here and all that brick's gonna spall off because we've got a pretty stall situation, because we now have a wet brick, or we didn't before, so.
Well, that's the conversation, if I have to do the calculation before the meeting, again, I guess it depends on how the assembly is created, but that's something I can look into before the meeting.
Me up to speed.
pardon?
I said it brings me up to speed, so thank you.
Okay. Felicia, you had, you said earlier that you might have some additional things to say. Is it in the context of this 10A, or is it a different context, or?
It's just kind of in general, I mean, I feel like we're spinning our wheels. I mean, we're discussing possibly, you know, re-looking at the scope and everything, but until we get a general direction, you know, it's unfair to ask our architect and everyone else to do work that may or may not end up facilitating a May referendum or a March referendum. So I'm kind of wondering, like, are we just kind of in a holding pattern right now? So it kind of applies to everyone.
Tom's shaking his head, yes.
It's a valid-
Mark?
Yeah, other than finding out what's going on with these exterior walls, I mean, there's nothing we could do at this point other than, you know, assist in any public information sessions that you may have. You know, or really that's it, you know. If we need to rebid this.
From the
that's all
committee,
different.
other than the getting the invoices approved, it was
Yeah.
really to get this as a preview of what, I didn't realize it was gonna come like this. Expected to see a few more pages, but
Oh, no, they just rolled up real tight.
it's rolled up.
Do we have a date on when the Board of Selectmen are gonna vote on what the path moving forward is?
I do not have that date. I guess my information that I had, that it was gonna be discussed tonight, but not necessarily voted on. And I don't know when the next, if there's another special meeting of the Board of Selectmen is at this point.
The agenda item tonight is determining a timeline. That's the specific agenda item.
That's what's the,
That's the agenda item for the Board of Selectmen, determining a timeline.
okay.
When we wrap here, we can walk over there and find out immediately.
Well, an hour or so.
Yeah, not immediately, guys.
It says discuss and take action to adopt a draft referendum timeline for the Academy building project.
So I guess to Felicia's question, is it even worth doing all the building inspection meetings and the dew point calculations? All this work before we have further clarity on the timeline of the project, or do you just pause everything?
I think it's
That's the
worth,
question.
it's worth having a conversation with.
I agree.
them. That's an issue we prefer to, vet, in the near future. But the other stuff, everything else can kind of wait.
Right, it ties back into my invoice thinking, which is I don't want to expend any more money on what ifs until we are given clear direction.
Joe, does it make sense for us to reach out to the bidders to see if they'll extend their bid another 90 days? I mean, it can't hurt to ask.
Can't hurt to ask.
Right. I mean, let's just find out sooner than later. And, I guess we'll know tonight if they're going to move it to May, but, we should find out fairly quickly if they're going to, because if they don't, then obviously we have to rebid if they make it a May referendum. But my guess is they will hold their bids through May, but we should formally ask. And you should give us the green light to ask formally.
I guess, is there a chance that that they push it back even farther, right? They say, well, May's not good, we're gonna do June or something.
I think that's, have you ever heard the chances are slim in that?
Yeah,
Yeah, that would be my interpretation.
it's gonna be May or it's gonna be March. Those are the two
Yes.
options on the table.
Or it's not gonna be at all. I mean, but I think that would be, the not at all is not an option.
Right. Okay. Yeah, then it doesn't hurt to get an answer.
Yeah, I think we can wait till tomorrow. But I don't know, do we want to do we need to discuss whether it's appropriate to ask them to hold, or is that just leave it up to our.
How about this, Joe? How about, I assume we're gonna have an answer tonight, one way or the
Yes.
other. If it's March, we don't have to ask anything. But if it's May, we need to ask. And if they don't make a decision, we should also ask. That'd be my recommendation.
We need, again, do we need a vote on this, or we just nod our heads and say,
Well, I would agree, but I'm wondering about the two, I assume we're holding a bond on 5 right now?
What's that, Peter?
Are we holding a bond on 5 bidders?
Yeah, we haven't
Yes.
released any bidders yet.
Mm.
Because we haven't
Reason.
selected a bidder.
Is there any reason to hold 4 and 5?
You would have to vote to say we're no longer interested in those bids, and then we could do that.
but we don't know if 1, 2, or
I
3
wouldn't raise that much.
is going to hold.
Right.
Going to hold.
And I
And
would
I-
absolutely have Tom figured out this exterior wall thing sooner than later, because if it comes back that it's gonna be required, he loses that battle. You may want to rebid this anyways, because versus negotiating a change order with the low bidder.
Yeah, to continue pursuing it. It's just
Yeah.
part of the process.
So I don't think, from what I'm hearing, a formal request to hold their bids is not appropriate at this time.
It's not in the offering.
Pardon?
It's not in the offering.
I,
We'll wait for them to
Right.
ask to hold. the
Right.
bids.
until we get some clarity on when and how the board decides to move forward, it is not, a formal request right now is not appropriate.
Do we have to wait until the next building committee meeting? Or can we just get an email from you, Joe, saying the Board of Selectmen voted to extend it to May? Can you reach out and find out if they'll hold their bids?
I can, yes, but give me 24 hours.
Okay, not a second more, Joe. You got 24
Yeah.
hours.
It's, that's 24 hours from, well, maybe not 24 hours from now, 48 hours from now. So not tomorrow, but the next day. Today is, let me think, today's Monday, so that'd be Wednesday. So just in case there's any discussion that has to be done outside of, in the town. And then we'd have to sort of do a poll on committee. I don't know about a vote, but we at least have to poll the committee to see what it was. Felicia, you have a comment here?
I mean, aside from the timeline, is there anything that we would be, that they would be looking for us to change with the bid? Assuming, maybe I'm on a conference, sorry. Assuming that we get, the wall insulation sorted out, they're going to take our recommendations as to what alternates we're holding and all of that? Or are they looking for us to redo scope as well? Because that's a whole other conversation.
And that's why I was looking for 48 hours. Because there might be requests to, right now, we're at 8 million something, that we might be asked to move to 7.67, I think it was, or whatever, if to reduce scope. And then, of course, we would need the input from the town building official if we've been asked to reduce scope.
I mean, at what point do we say, no, we don't think that is the right course of action?
The May referendum.
Or redoing the scope, or, you know, there are various points up for discussion that are kind of being, you know, pushed on this board that I don't know necessarily, maybe I'm the only one who doesn't necessarily agree with this whole form of action, but at what point we've kind of just been going along and capitulating to all their requests, but at what point do we come back and say, this is our recommendation, you can overrule it because you have the authority, but this is our recommendation as the board?
I think when we did the total cost as opposed to limiting ourselves to the 767, I think that was our first step in saying this is, you know, we at least want to know what the full scope is, and if we have to reduce, we want to be able to say this is what we could recommend, or we could not recommend any. As you know, the town eventually gets the final say, but then we're an advisory board, so we could decide that. I can't say that this is a discussion for tonight, though, considering all the unknowns that are coming in front of us, that are still in front of us.
Okay, I just want to know if this discussion is coming and sort of what, again, we are an advisory board, but we've been at this for quite some time and make, you know, our best recommendations. And I think, you know, we should be heard if we're going to be asked to continue to change what our recommendations are.
I think our next meeting is probably that. It's that point. And if we need to have a special meeting sooner, we could do that too. But I believe our next meeting is 2 weeks. I don't have calendar here, but
It's February 10th, Joe. I just double checked.
February 10th.
February 10th is the next meeting.
That's 2 weeks. God, how did that be February already? Any other comments on 10A? Last, we'll close 10A out. Last item on the agenda is a public comment. Austin, do we have anyone who has raised their hand to make a public comment?
Not at this time, no.
Scott?
Yeah, we have one.
Oh, okay. It will take public comment from, and if you could please identify yourself, please.
Sure. Jim Schmaltz, Jonathan's Landing. I got a question. It's, you know, I kind of agree with Felicia. It seems like there's a lot of question on what we're actually going to end up with. And I think it's really the duty of you guys to put together what the package is, what's in every room, make sure it's specific, and also what the realistic contingencies are. I know in the meetings, Felicia said she was on a project where it was 3 months of abatement, it turned into 6 months. You know, you've got a lot of things, and I think it was gone over at the Board of Selectmen meeting when Ben was speaking, that there's a a lot that can go wrong in this process. We need to know kind of, you know, what is the real cost to do this? It seems like over the past 20 years, there's always been a number that people are trying to fit a project into, rather than saying this is the project and this is what it costs. And it seems like we're doing that again. If you approve, if they say, okay, we're going to spend 15.9 and we're going to add the 7.6 on top, what happens when it's, there's a $2 or $3 million, above the contingency, which is, I'm assuming, pretty realistic. You got to kind of, say this is what it's going to cost. It's an old building. There's a lot to do. There's a lot to go wrong. And if you don't want to be opening the building and being like, oh, well, we're going to save up and get donations so we could, maybe we can get the cricket machine out of the library and put it in this room and call it a craft room. I'm not even sure if you have the full budget on FF&E and like what is in every room, what it's costing, or if it's just estimates.
Jim, that was some of what we wanted to do tonight. But I think we're going to do that again. That's something for the next meeting. We have the QA&M renderings of what the various rooms are, and when I make a meeting or in new business, that was one of the things I wanted to get to, the details of a room by room, and that's something that we're going to have to do, especially for to be sure the FFE amount is correct. And Tom.
I'd just like to point out that we're actually in a really good place from a budget standpoint because we actually just hard bid the project.
Mm-hmm.
So we have the actual market cost to do the project, the whole project that we're intending to do, including all of the alternates. So the bid amounts that we have are very good, and we had 3 bids that were relatively close to each other. I think Mr. Schmaltz makes a good point about, are we including the appropriate soft costs on top of the project, whether it's contingencies and FF&E budget values? Colliers International has gone through a pretty extensive process to put a full budget, a recommended budget together, including all of the contingencies and associated dollars. All of that will be packaged and presented to the general public for review prior to going to referendum.
Like the numbers that, Ben was talking about, you were into like, a realistic budget of 23 million, plus your soft costs on top of that. So the numbers that they're trying to fit it into isn't realistic.
It wasn't 23 million had included the soft costs. What we did not include that Ben recommended was a 10% contingency, as opposed to we included an 8% contingency. But Jim, I appreciate your comments, and we are actually, what the committee has been trying to do over the last few weeks is come up with the most accurate estimate of the cost of the building as designed originally, given the information we have at this time. Thank you. Are there any other comments, Austin?
No one else has their hand raised.
Okay, hearing none or having none, can I get a meeting? I'd like to make a motion to adjourn. Get a second?
Second.
All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.